Bioware, as you know it, they are done. Key staff are jumping ship, writers have been sacked, and even the LGBTQ plus community has come out and said that they feel betrayed by Bioware. EA has pretty much just come out and said enough's enough. Essentially, the Veilguard has become an unmitigated disaster for EA and, of course, Bioware, as we know. Once the earnings report came out recently, this stock price tanked by about 15%. So where do we go from here? Mass Effect 5 is the next title coming up for Bioware. Will that be the savior? Will EA have learnings from this and ultimately Bioware as well from the Veilguard's failure? We can only hope, because they've ruined one beloved franchise that people waited a decade to see. Can they recover with Mass Effect 5? I don't know. Corinne Bush has left Bioware. She was the game director and, of course, basically jumped ship. Officially, the statement was that it was her decision. The timing is suspicious, of course, of the layoffs just a few days later. And of course, this raises serious questions about Bioware's executive leadership. Now, one has to ask themselves, who signed off on this? Now, can we ultimately blame Corinne for the direction that this game ended up taking? Yes, she's the game director. Yes, she had overall creative control over the game. But no, she wouldn't be the one that signed off and approved the whole process for making Dragon Age the Veilguard what it was. Ultimately, yes, she may have pushed for it, and we know that there's obviously quite a few people within the LGBTQ plus activism community who worked on Dragon Age the Veilguard, but really it's the executive team and CEO that needs to sign off on this kind of stuff. If they're happy to sign off on this stuff, and we have to remember this is a years-long process, it's not like they signed off on it 6 months before release. There was probably 2, maybe 3 different iterations of Dragon Age the Veilguard before it became what it was. It was going to be a multiplayer game, it was going to be live service. Various projects got canned, people who worked on the original were working on the Veilguard, and then of course they quit altogether, and then the new team led by Corinne Bush came in and we got what we ended up with. But basically, at the height of the development cycle, all this LGBTQ plus activism was highly prevalent in the gaming industry, and it still is to some degree. Really interesting with the writers and the layoffs. Like I said, pretty much all the writers gone and just being gutted, either moved on to other projects or gone completely. How are they going to recover from this? I mean, as we know, Bioware has been a studio with its roots founded in single-player RPG, story-driven, immersive experiences. And of course, as we know, senior writers who have been with Bioware for decades aren't immune to this whole activism thing. You know, like I said at the start of the video, Patrick Weeks is one of the layoff victims, been on Blue Sky, basically saying he's available. As good as he was 20 years ago, people change over time. So now that we know that they've gutted all their story writing and development from their narrative and creative teams, where does Bioware go from here? Who are they making games for, really? Because you can't say after the Veilguard that you're making games for fans of the Dragon Age franchise when you killed it that badly. They have Mass Effect 5 coming up. This is literally last chance saloon for them. Even their most loyal fans are turning away, and if they stuff this up, they are done. I have no doubt there will be another AAA studio that's just gone under, closed down, shut for good, because EA is a very heavily profit-driven company, as all corporations are, especially in capitalist nations. They aren't going to put up with another failure like the Veilguard. And they can harp on about, oh, we had 1.5 million players. Well, how many of those were free copies, etc.? I'd say a great deal of them, because reportedly they missed the mark by 50% at least. That is shocking for a game that probably cost 200 plus million to make. And they had a far higher sales target just to break even, which they didn't even come close to. It's obviously cost the company a fortune. And it's not just the financial repercussions that they've had, it's the reputational ones as well. Because they've basically just proven that they're more interested in pandering to a modern audience than they are, of course, just making a great game. And it just shows that the people that sign off on this and put people like Corinne Bush, leave people like Trick Weeks to do whatever the hell they want to do, they don't understand the audience that they're attempting to cater to. They're making a product for themselves, and that is fine if you are an indie studio, or if you're making a new IP for the first time. But if it crashes and burns like Unknown 9 did, you only have yourself to blame. But if you're taking over a well-loved franchise that people have been waiting a decade for a new iteration for, better look at what made it so popular in the first place and times 10 that. Not completely shift the narrative vision to something else that people clearly didn't want to begin with, had no interest in, and just cock the whole thing up that it's going to go down as internet history as one of the biggest failures you've ever seen in your life in the gaming industry. It's crazy how they could do that. Yet here we are. And they're not the first to do it, and they won't be the last. Yeah, perhaps it all started with the failure that was Anthem. Even there was conjecture over how good Inquisition was as well, but this is definitely a killer for them, and I can't see them recovering from it no matter how well Mass Effect 5 does. It's going to be difficult for them to make a comeback based on how poorly the Veilguard performed. If Mass Effect 5 does, like I said earlier, Bioware's done, we'll never hear from them ever again. Which is a shame because they had some incredible IP and they did some incredible stuff in their early days and even just over a decade ago, but they've been on a downward slope ever since. Where do we go as gamers, as fans of previous Bioware iterations from here? Well, to be honest, I know I said it in a previous video and I'll link it at the end about Mass Effect, and I was pretty excited for it, but after seeing all this, I'm kind of losing hope. And it's justified to lose hope, and it's not even hope that I'm losing, it's just complete apathy. I just don't even really care. I'm interested to see how Mass Effect 5 goes. I would like it to be successful. I loved the original games. I thought they were fantastic. They were an amazing experience, and they were core to what Bioware was good at. It really was just incredible storytelling, immersive dialogue, freedom of choice, player agency. All of these things is what should be in an amazing RPG. But when you take that away from your players, you're just left with a hollow shell. And it's crazy to think that people involved and who have seen it all over the years have just gone so far away from that within the industry as a whole, and not just Bioware, that it just feels like, and of course we know it anyway, that the industry has just been infested with people whose number one priority isn't making fun, engaging, and great games anymore. There's still those people in the industry, don't get me wrong, but it feels like they are just few and far between. And now it's us players who are looking for the devil in the detail in every new release as well. Great games are still going to have their critics and have the microscope put over them for any overly progressive details, even if they're not core to the story. I mean, we only have to look at my last video on talking about the Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 backlash. Not a big deal in my opinion, but for many people it really was, because they've seen it too often, and I understand that. I don't agree with it, but I understand why people gave such a backlash to that game. Even though it ultimately didn't really affect the player count or the sales, it still did extremely well. But I can understand why a lot of people who have just gone through this time and time again, especially in the last 12 to 18 months, have just seen any sign of any progressive nature in games that wasn't there in the prequels or predecessors, and just basically gone, fuck that. I'm not going anywhere near that. I understand, I get it, I don't necessarily agree with every instance, but I guess I can empathize with people who do have that opinion because they've been burnt too many times. So in regards to Bioware, like I said before, their Mass Effect 5 is literally their last hope. I mean, will it do well? Who knows? People are going to be pretty apathetic towards it, in my opinion. It's really hard to get excited about an upcoming release when you've just been disappointed so many times by all these big studios just shitting all over their existing IP and franchises. It's incredible to watch in real time, which is what's happening with Bioware, and not just Bioware, Ubisoft next as well. These two once huge studios that gamers love have just gone into a massive tailspin, and they're going to crash and burn. And it's like watching a car crash. You can't look away from it. Incredible. And it's incredible how, with so much financial backing, so much experience, I would say so much know-how about the industry, but we know that that's not the case anymore with all the new people that have come in and clearly don't understand gamers. But it's almost unbelievable how they can just let this happen. Yet here we are. This is the state of AAA gaming in 2025, and I can't really see it getting too much better. Anyway, just a little bit of a rant about the current state of the industry. If you'd like to learn more about Mass Effect 5, why don't you check out my video over there. Otherwise, if you enjoyed the video, I'd really appreciate a like, and if you enjoy my content, please subscribe. Otherwise, I look forward to seeing you in the next one. Bye for now.